Well, welcome back to our next episode of The Awakened Stranger. And again, this is Cody. Today we're sitting with Courtney. So with that, Courtney, I'll have you give us a little explanation of who you are and an introduction to you and some of the life stuff that you've gone through, and just share a little bit about your story and let us know how we got to where we are today.
All right, sounds good. Well, I'm Courtney. I was born in Ohio, and I'm currently living in West Virginia. I'm in my early 40s. I'm a single mother of two. I come from a semi-large family on both sides, mom and dad's side. I have a younger brother and sister. My brother passed away in 2024. My dad passed away when I was 19. And I had my first child, my son, when I was 21. I'd been with his father for almost 4 years. Everything was good till he was about 9 months old. And that was the first event that I experienced, domestic violence, domestic assault. That was very traumatic, which I've been going back and thinking about my life. And for some reason, I'm having a hard time. I had a lot of good memories and a happy childhood, but for some reason, my brain is stuck and it's reliving all the trauma as far back as I can remember to like age 3. So anyways, my best friend was in a bad car accident when we were 27, I think 2011, a few days before her son's birthday. It was right after our Cedar Point trip, and she died instantly. So I asked my mom, I said, Mom, I want to get out of here. Let's go to Myrtle Beach. So my mom agreed. My brother stayed behind. My child's dad stayed behind. But it was me, my sister, and my mom. And I had graduated with a 2-year degree, paralegal studies. Nothing major, but the local colleges didn't offer anything else I was interested in. So I just took what I could get. And we moved down there in October. And I got a job. I forced myself into Food Lion as a cashier. And I immediately started putting out resumes daily, tons of resumes to get into a law office. I took the postal exam. I was determined to be able to stay there. It was wonderful just living. We lived right on the beach during the 6-month off season. Well, April came around and we did not have the ability to stay there. So we had to come home. And I ended up going back to work at Domino's Pizza because I could, make extra money on top of minimum wage. So I was doing that and kind of gave up on using my degree. And I started having more health issues. And then I ended up pregnant with my daughter. I actually believe I got pregnant with her on my 30th birthday. So she was definitely a gift. Had her in May. I ended up getting fired from Domino's because I was so ill during the pregnancy. And I was unable to go back to work. By this point, me and their father had separated. He was up at his parents' house up the hill. And I really didn't have any income, but at least, I owned the home and wasn't in fear of losing that. I didn't have a car at the time, but I was waiting disability status. 2.5 years later, I was approved for multiple sclerosis and several other conditions. And I know I'm kind of going back and forth, but starting at age 15, I had been diagnosed with like school phobia, social phobia. And so therefore, that began my mental health journey. And they immediately put me on mental health medications. And I would say I was, over a period of 20 years, I was on well over 20 different medications through the years. And I never realized during those times, the possible side effects and dangers and what it was doing to my nervous system and just my entire being. And eventually I was put on those major painkillers. I was only 31 and I was receiving like probably what a cancer patient would be getting. So it was taking its toll on me, you know, my ability to care for my children, my ability to function. But I was kind of stuck because I didn't know, you know, how I could function without them. So that crisis continued, and I asked for help. I asked, you know, the few family members I had, you know, I needed help with my children. Their dad wasn't helping me. I was finally approved for my disability, I think December of 2017. So I was able to purchase a car, and I was working on trying to get approved for an apartment for myself and the children. We had actually moved back up north to my hometown into my grandmother's home. She had passed away, but my uncle still lived there. So me and the kids went there. And then all of a sudden they decided to sell the house. So back to the trailer we went. And it was just a very unhealthy, dangerous situation. I'm not sure what month it was in 2018, but it was the night before I was going to purchase my car. And I needed I had borrowed my mom's car. So I needed somebody to drive her car back, you know, after I purchased the vehicle. Well, nobody was available. So I knew of someone through a coworker. I did not know him very well at all. I'd met him a few times, and he seemed safe enough. So he said he would come and drive the car for me. Little did I know, he was actually running from charges of home invasion and many other things that I did not know. So he was dangerous to have around myself and children, which was my mistake, but I didn't figure I needed to do a background check to have someone help me, you know, go bring the car home, right? Well, he knew I had money, and unfortunately, I did not know that he had, the hospital told me that it was a synthetic opioid, more complex than fentanyl. They couldn't state exactly what it was. And I woke up covered in cold water with 2 police officers in my kitchen. He was sitting next to me. The officers were laughing. And I stood up and I said, "What's going on?" And they just told me, "Just sit down, quit acting like you don't know. You just overdosed." My son had woke up and found him dragging me in the hallway and ran out of the window up to his grandparents and called 911. I do not remember how I don't think there was an ambulance there. I just woke up in the hospital with an IV, and there was a lady from CPS, and she came in and she says, "Well, we're taking your children, and you will be charged with child endangerment." And I had never had anything, no criminal charges before that. So this was a huge shock on top of, you know, waking up near-death experience, overdose. So I stayed overnight in the hospital. They took our kids and they went to foster care for 2 weeks, but my mom was able to get custody of them. And my sister lived with my mom, so they were able to take care of the kids. And my mom ended up with lung cancer. So I called my brother and I told him, and he was able to obtain a 90 or a 60-day treatment of the Rick Simpson oil, the THC CBD oil that kills cancer. And she was able to do that treatment, you know, while my sister helped her with the kids. And she was sleeping, you know, most of the time because it's very, you know, it makes you sleep. So she was really going through it. And I was actually back in my hometown at her sister's, my Aunt Kathy's. And during this time, my Aunt Kathy had been on pain medication for many years. and she ended up with a real severe heroin addiction. And she had been telling my mom that I was doing what she was doing, the drugs, because I wasn't really allowed to communicate with my mom, per the instructions of the CPS case. So I did not even know that I was being betrayed and lied about. And so I was staying with my aunt, and I would go to my friend's house that I knew from junior high school and help her with her kids, waiting on trying to get approved for a place to live again. Those lists take forever, limited income. It was a very hard struggle. I ended up taking my car to a garage to get some work done on it. They gave me a $1,200 bill and kept my car. My aunt told me to get out of her home. So I ended up walking a few miles to Kenmore, Ohio, near Akron, to a friend's house there to stay there. He was at work, and it was about midnight. I didn't have phone service, so I walked to the gas station to use the Wi-Fi. I'd been making videos for my children in case I died. I didn't know why I felt that way. And I noticed a man watching me in the parking lot. He had on sunglasses, and he ended up walking up to me and started talking to me. And he told me he was blind. He was like legally blind. And I told him, I was just staying right over on the next block. And he said, well, would you like to go for a walk with me? He pointed out a house across the street, and he said, I'm staying over there. So I thought, well, I guess so. Harmful, hopefully not harmful. I didn't feel like I was in harm's way. We started walking and talking, and he said, I need you to do me a favor. I need you to tell me if you feel any energy anywhere that feels dangerous. I said, okay, should I be worried? And he goes, no, I just let me know. So we walked around and just around the houses, and he took me up to like this garage, and I said, we need to leave here immediately. And he says, wonderful judgment. You're right on track. And so I was kind of interested. I'm like, what are we doing here? And he said, let's keep going. We'll go around the block. And I could see the apartment, my friend's apartment. So I felt okay. And we went to another property, and I said, no, this is no good either. I said, I think I'm going to have to get over to the apartment and get in for the night. And he said, well, would you be so kind to sit on the porch with me, and I need to talk to someone. No one ever listens to me. And there was a full moon that night. So I said, okay, I can see the apartment. I'll sit with you for 20 minutes, and then I'm leaving. He proceeded to tell me his life story, starting at age 15. It was exactly what I had been through.
Wow.
Even down to losing the children. I looked up at the moon, and I said, okay, God, I'm listening. I really didn't understand. It felt supernatural. There was a lot of energy I'd never noticed before going on too. And so I just sat there, non-judgmental, of course, but I'm kind of freaking out because I've never met this guy, and I know he does not know anyone that I know. And he ended up asking me if I would come in. And I said, I'm tired. It's late. This was about 1 a.m. I said, I think my friend's home from work. I said, he's probably worried about me. And he said, I've just really been enjoying your company. Come in. I'm just staying with this older friend of mine that I help. And he was an elderly man. I walked in, and there was an elderly man who owned the home. And we were sitting down, and I felt okay, but I still kind of felt strange. And then he proceeded to ask me if I wanted to smoke some marijuana. And I said, no, I just, my energy, I was afraid. I was afraid, especially after what had happened to me prior, being around that other person. Well, I can't explain why I couldn't leave the house. He did not physically hold me. He never touched me. And I don't remember the next several hours, but I ended up upstairs. And I remember daylight came, and I was walking down the stairs, and I saw this younger guy sitting there. And I said, Demetrius, is that you? It was someone that I had gone to junior high school with, who I'd been talking to on the phone for the past few months. We'd gotten back in contact as adults. And he looked at me and he said, yeah, but it didn't actually look like him. It looked like a child form of him. I said, what are you doing here? He said, we've got to get you out of here. And he took my hand and he walked me through the doorway and down the steps. I said, where's your car? He said, I don't know. I don't know where I'm at. I don't know how I got here. We just need to get away. And so we were holding hands and we continued walking down the street. And the man came out and ran after us and ran in between our hands to break our hands apart. And he started screaming at him. And I said, we can walk to my Aunt Kathy's. We just got to keep going this way. And the man turned around and left, disappeared. And the next thing I knew, he was gone. Demetrius was gone. So he told me he had a dream about me that night. I guess he astral projected or something to save me. I don't know, but I was delirious. I don't know. I don't know what was going on with me, but I was in some stranger's yard for a few hours until she came home from work, and then she called the police on me because I was so confused and did not know. I kept telling her there were bones buried in her backyard, and I told her that I thought I was dead. And so the police showed up, but the police ended up calling the ambulance squad, and they took me to the hospital. And they ended up giving me some sort of shot in the leg. And I woke up the next morning and I said, can you please just admit me? Can you please admit me for a few days? And they said, no, you don't meet the criteria. So they called a taxi and sent me back to my aunt's house. I think so I was gone for 2 nights and she didn't know where I was, and no cell phone service. And the man who was driving the taxi, I was telling him what happened to me, and he was looking at me in the rearview mirror, and it was my dad. It looked exactly like my dad, who had died like 20 years prior to this. And so that really struck me as odd. I mean, as a kid, I seen I would see ghosts here and there, and I believed in supernatural, but I wasn't, super into any of it. And I always had intuition, but I wanted to be, like an energy healer, but I thought, I don't have that ability. So through all of this, I became able to get off of the pain medication. I found CBD, Charlotte's Web, I think. Yeah, Charlotte's Web. And it was expensive, but I purchased it every month, and it did the trick for my pain. And then there were some CBD transdermal patches from Mary's Medicinals out in Colorado. And I ordered those, and I would use those during the day. I was able to get off of all of my psychiatric medications. So by the time I was 35, I was off of all the pharmaceuticals, 20 years worth of pharmaceuticals.
Wow, good job.
And that was the same year. It was 2019. I had found on YouTube someone called Casanova the Don, and he had a song called Mystery, and he sounded exactly like Tupac. And Tupac was my favorite growing up through my entire life. And I had always wanted to go to Stone Mountain, Georgia, because Tupac's mom lived there. And I'd never made it. So I thought, I got to get away from here or I'm going to die. So I met someone mutual on Instagram who, liked my photographs that I posted, and he posted photographs. And I said in March of 2019, I said, I'm on my way. And I drove down there and I felt alive. I felt like I was in heaven. Like all my anxiety, all my problems went away. even though I only had enough money to pay for a hotel for a few days. I said, after the third day, I said, I am not going back. I said, I feel so alive here. Like all my life, I had like sleeping disorders and I slept, like 9 to 12 hours a day, always depressed and stuff like that. And where I lived in West Virginia, where I'm at now, DuPont chemical plant has poisoned America's waters with C8. And it's actually called Chemical Valley here. So it's a very unhealthy place to be. And I've noticed since I've been here over these past few years, I had to come back from Atlanta, so I could work on getting my children. I was in a near fatal car accident down there. They had to cut me out with the jaws of life. So that was another near-death experience, shock, trauma to my nervous system and everything. I was unconscious for nearly an hour as they cut me out of the car with the jaws of life. But I did get the chance to meet the Casanova the Don, and that was a really neat experience. And I when I was hanging out with him, I had to keep looking over because I thought I was with Tupac. Because I didn't think he was real. I thought maybe he was lip singing or something. And so I got real into his music and even more mysteries about Tupac while I was down there. And I would go to Stone Mountain and hike it. And my friend, his mother actually let me move in. So I was not homeless anymore. And but after that car accident, I ended up coming back home at the end of August, I believe, of 2019. And I had to figure something out. So I stayed with my mom for a little while and saved some money. And I was able to get another car and my first rental apartment in July of 2020. So I got my daughter back.
Nice.
My son decided to stay with his dad. And I thought everything was going well, but it wasn't. There was some really, really horrible things that she had experienced. And so I did not let her leave my side again after that, even though he had, her dad had the legal custody. I said, she's staying here permanently. I was homeschooling her. She had started kindergarten. I said, you can come over anytime. He ended up going and staying with my brother, and my son did too. Well, that's when my intuition had really came online after that car accident. Like it scared me how accurate my intuition was. People would get mad at me because I was always right and predicting things. And I had told my brother, he had gotten fired from his job, and he, his love of marijuana, which I don't have anything against. I think marijuana is very healing medication if used properly, and especially with the CBD version of it. But he got himself into some pretty big, deep trouble being a marijuana dealer, not a legal dispensary. And I got real worried, and I told him, I said, I wrote him a letter, and I had someone hand deliver it to him. And I wrote out a list of things not to do, because if they came and busted him and he didn't have anything, it would have been dry. Nothing would have happened. Instead, he calls me screaming at me, and he did every single thing on that letter I told him not to do. Plus, my son was living there, and I didn't want my son to have to go through any more trauma, of like a SWAT team bust. Mm-hmm. I don't know how I knew. I just knew. So I think my brother thought that I got in trouble or told on him or something crazy like that. But that was not the case. So anyways, him and my kid's dad and my son left his house for the weekend because he was flipping out. And we found out later on that they were actually planning to bust the house that weekend. He found out through a local attorney. But my son and his father were able to get their own apartment a week later. And following week later, my brother's home was raided by the local task force, and it was a sealed warrant. He was a prior felon for a gun charge, so he wasn't allowed to have a gun, and he had an AR-15. They found several pounds of marijuana and like 5,000 in cash. They took his brand new PS5. They busted his cameras. Nothing was right about the warrant, because I do know how to do legal research and read the paperwork and all of that type of stuff. They bombed his windows out and everything, and he gave them the money and the marijuana and the Viagra pills. And they took all that. They said, "You're lucky your truck's not paid for, or we'd take that too." Well, his girlfriend came back after that, and they went to Florida and got married. She didn't tell me until after he died that he was a federal drug informant. Wow. But I knew something wasn't right. I knew everything wasn't right, because his behavior was extremely erratic. And, I had ideas to help investigate that. So, sorry about that.
You're okay.
I started experiencing extreme technical difficulties with my home Wi-Fi, my cell phones. Somehow my brother, I would leave my home without my cell phone. Somehow he would always know my locations. He started making multiple threats to me that the cartel was going to kill us, or he was going to set me up and have me put in prison. I started dating that friend from junior high school, and he moved into my apartment, and he had networking degree, and he was very good with technology. And I was having all those problems with my phones. I kept switching the phones out and the phone numbers, and the same things kept happening. And I asked for his help, and he wouldn't help me with my phone. So I said, okay, well, I'll go to AT&T. I went to the AT&T store, got a new account with just my name and an iPhone, thought it was going to be secure. Within 2 days, he had hacked it, SIM swapped it, and cloned it.
Wow.
I started doing research on my landlords at that time too, because my daughter and I were under the Federal Housing Protection Act of the Women's Against Violence program. And my landlord was surrounding us with drug dealers and human trafficking people. It's because I was looking up their names, background check. I was looking these people's names up. There was constant drug activity through our yard constantly. There was a man who had been released for murder and child pedophile. He was living next door to us. And there was a man out front who was also federally, I guess he must have been an informant. So I started putting all this together, and figured out this is like an organized crime network. I contacted the FBI, the Internet Crimes Commission, in May of 2022. Never heard back from them. Made another report in November of 2023. Never heard back from them. Contacted Department of Justice, local places, all of that. So I didn't feel safe. So I decided that I was going to take my daughter and try to relocate to Atlanta. Well, my boyfriend was not happy about that, and he was at home in North Carolina. And little did I know he had been involved in this as well. And my phone took me to Tennessee. I had never been that way coming back home from Atlanta before. I always, avoided Tennessee. My brother had vacation there a couple times as well. And we spent 3 days lost and fighting for our lives. Multiple attempts at hotels, of men trying to abduct us. We were experiencing like delirium, and we were falling asleep. Like I would have to pull over and we would fall asleep. And I woke up near Knoxville at one point to some officers banging on my window in the middle of the night. I couldn't find any exits to get back on the highway. It was like a real life horror film. I was having visual hallucinations. I could not, like the roads were disappearing. And I told the officers, I said, I thought I was in North Carolina. I told them my boyfriend's name and his father's name and all of that because they handcuffed me. Then they woke my daughter up and her story matched. So they decided, even though my license was suspended, they decided to escort us to a hotel. And so we were okay that night. But I'd been calling all of my family members for help to come get us. Please come get us. Please come get us. None of them would come and get us. I called 911 several times. I've still got the phone records to this day. No help ever arrived. So I believe my calls must have been rerouted. So the night of November 11th, 2022, I almost found my way back to 77 North to get home, finally. And I stopped at a gas station because I was having an allergic reaction, and I used their phone to call 911 for an ambulance because I was just exhausted at this point. And the lot started filling up with semi-trucks, and I felt very uncomfortable. I waited about 20 minutes, no ambulance arrived. So I said, I can do this. I'll get back on the road. Got back on the interstate, and I noticed a truck following me, and they got extremely close. They were attempting to hit me. So I called 911 for help again. Nobody ever showed up. The truck ended up hitting me. This was, 11 something that night. They hit me to the point where I had a blowout, and I ended up on the wrong side of the interstate.
Oh, wow.
I was, I didn't know what was going on, and the reports, a truck driver called and reported that I was, on the wrong side of the road. And all of a sudden, 2 Kingsport police officers showed up, and me and my daughter put our arms out the window. I was only doing like 8 miles an hour because of the blowout. I just wanted to make sure it was really the police at this point before I pulled to a complete stop. And that did not work out well at all. I started telling him what had happened, and I was scared, but I trusted we were safe. The other officer took my daughter. This man took me to the hospital, which I consented to the blood draw. I wanted to know what I had been drugged with. He refused me medical attention after the blood draw, and he took me to some small jail. At this point, I felt like maybe I was never going to see the light of day again. It was just so creepy. Maybe it was whatever substance, was in my system making everything look so unreal. But I remember falling asleep in this little tiny jail cell. And I woke up 3 days later in a completely different jail on the floor and did not know how I got there.
Wow.
And then I found out that I had been charged with felonies, reckless endangerment, DUI, and all of this list of insane charges. My brother left me down there for over 30 days. Luckily, the police were able to contact, my kid's father. He came to get her. My brother finally came to get me in December 12th of 2022. And that was the same day that a young lady named Gretchen Fleming went missing from the My Way Lounge bar in Parkersburg, West Virginia. They just found her skull and confirmed it was her like last month.
Oh, wow.
So through all my research and everything, I had found this information that that same bar held trust over my social security number. And I didn't know what it meant at the time that I found it. But, you know, the more research I've done about the human trafficking and the organized crime and things like that, I've been looking into the trusts and the finance sector and all of those things, because I feel like, you know, if nobody's going to inform me, I've got to inform myself, because knowledge is power. So this case is still pending. They refused all of my 911 records. They will not get my data. They won't locate. They will not help me with any of. I've got plenty of evidence to prove this. When I told my public defender that, you know, what happened, he ordered a mental evaluation on me. That was last August. Then he told me that I didn't have to have it done. And then he said in the last court hearing, I haven't had to go there in person since my brother passed. I've been able to Zoom, but it's been like 15 appearance hearings and I never know what's going on. The indictment, the grand jury indictment, has a boy's name from Tennessee stating that he was in my car. The arrest report has my daughter's name. And my bondsman told me it was a kangaroo court, so I looked that up. So that says basically they don't follow any type of law. They just do what they want. And I didn't think this stuff was real life stuff, but it is. I've had several free consultations with attorneys, and one of them said, I'll take your case for $25,000. I said, well, thanks, but you know, I don't have it like that, which I don't feel like I should have to pay $25,000 for this, for just merely surviving anyways. I feel like they should be paying me for all this torture. But since all this time has passed, nearly 4 years, I do not qualify for the state trafficking crime victims fund, which was like $35,000, you know, to help victims of crime relocate and restart their lives. So I was diagnosed with CPTSD last summer, and this trauma has, I don't leave my house very often. You know, I don't have like any local friends. It's rough, and I've just been surviving on faith that an angel somewhere is going to hear my story, or, you know, the right person's going to come along and help me get this justice.
What does that look like for you? Like, what are you hoping to kind of accomplish out of it?
Well, I would like the charges dropped, and I would like to qualify for some sort of, like, I've looked into like the international courts for human rights. You know, I'm contacting them. I don't feel safe. I would ultimately like to relocate outside of the country and be able to purchase a piece of property and build a wellness retreat for women. And I would like to offer, you know, I mean, of course it has to be income. You know, I do need some income to run it, but I would like to be able to assist like the U.S. Marshals Witness Protection Program, or something, you know, federal like that. Women and children to be able to relocate out of the country and come to the resort, heal, maybe learn some skills if they need to, you know, build a safe group of healers and people who need healed. And I've really incorporated like herbal medications into my life. I've learned a lot about, you know, diet. Actually, I've been attempting to try to alkalize my blood, which is hard to do with our food supply here at this moment. But that's my goal. That would feel like fair justice, and you know, maybe the people who all involved would have to pay and be put away so that society is a safe place. Mm-hmm. And then I feel like I would have the chance to finally fully heal and live my purpose, as opposed to suffering and possibly being wrongfully put in, because my attorney said he told me I was facing 8 to 12 years in prison.
Wow.
So I am in limbo right now, but I've been learning, how to read natal charts and learning about asteroids and things like that. And I was going through my chart, and I have full faith and belief that it's all going to work out. And I believe it's going to happen faster than I realize.
Mm-hmm.
So, if anybody's listening and they're going through the hardest time in their life and they don't think they're going to make it out, all you have to have is that faith, even if you have to make yourself delusional over it. Because like Florence Scovel Shinn said in her book, The Game of Life and How to Play It, she wrote it in 1925. She says it's all about your mind, what you believe and how you think and what you expect. And then I also believe, about the frequency, raising our frequency and trying to get our chakras in tune. I mean, there's layers to all of this. There's a lot of it, but I have learned a lot through this time of seclusion.
Yeah. Well, that's one thing that I've kind of learned too, is like, right, as we go through stuff and we learn kind of how to approach things from a different angle.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned, clearing chakras and kind of raising our frequency. I sometimes feel like that's what the whole kind of planet's going through at the moment, and a lot of our traumas and a lot of our things that we've dealt with in life are kind of coming to the surface to either be let go or kind of dealt with and move on. But so that was my wonder, is like, maybe is there just a lot of the things in your past that you're just needing to acknowledge so you can move on from them versus try to solve them and fix them? Or do you think that's something that you really have to kind of work through and fix to move forward?
I think the body keeps score with my experience, and a lot of people that I've heard talk about it, the body holds it in the fascia, in the lymph, in not the brain. The body actually holds memory, and it can actually hold memory and fears from our past lives as well. Like, I'm big on Dolores Cannon's teachings, and I wanted to do the QHHT therapy, quantum healing hypnosis technique, but I haven't been able to, find a qualified practitioner to have that done. I wanted to learn how to do it myself as well. I've been wanting to make guided meditations on YouTube, but I don't. I feel like my voice is so broken that I've just I've just kept quiet. I've been like forced silent in a sense. But yeah, I thought, at times that I felt better in this and that, but it's all really come to a head. But the planet is ascending to 5D consciousness, where they say that there will be no more harm, no more fear, no more, anything negative. Basically, there's a scale of, the consciousness where it's like fear is 0 and unconditional love is like 700. I'm sure you may have seen it online. Mm-hmm. But I think it's a need for community as well, like-minded individuals, even if it's just to have groups to chat, with other people. I put ideas together because I tried to build a business with my brother. That didn't work out. I've been wanting to have a business, and then I found that in my chart as well. Everything that I've been wanting to do all these years is actually written in my star chart. Publish a book, open a business, and not be a boss of people, but like my idea with the retreat, open it up and then have other women practitioners, everyone that does different things, allow them to come in and, provide services, and us all collaborate together.
That sounds like a pretty good spot.
I'm believing it more now that I've seen it in the natal chart. Yeah. Because I've been wanting to do it for a long time, but that part of me that doubts, but how?
I think
but it said it'll be funded. Yeah.
I think that's the part that a lot of us are trying to figure out, because I've had similar thoughts of trying to create something like that, a little healing retreat, and Maui's my
Hmm.
spot, And you had mentioned that
Yeah.
even getting to certain locations where your anxiety goes away, you start feeling better. And I've had that a
Yeah.
lot where in certain spaces, geographical locations, I just feel like the weight of the world is gone. And it's like I can accomplish
Hmm.
anything. And yeah, I do. I believe that maybe it's kind of our soul calling ourselves to certain locations for a bigger purpose than just getting out of an environment. I feel like maybe we're all meant to be in certain places during this kind of rise of frequency and shift in the planet. So I don't know.
You're right. You're 100% correct on that.
So
And I love the island. I want to go to an island. I've never actually been. I've been to Hilton Head Island, but I want to go, some clear waters. I need to be in tropical climates and just near the water. And yeah, when you're in the right place, you can live your purpose because, there's energy grids through the earth as well
mm-hmm.
that align with our energy centers in our body.
Yeah, that's becoming more and more aware to me now of why that's so important. And just like that, I come back from certain locations or travel to a place, and I come back feeling like I can take on the world, and then all of a sudden it just starts shifting, and you realize that maybe it's an environment that you're in or a location that just is not
Mm-hmm.
conducive to really your best or highest good,
Mm-hmm.
and it is. I would definitely challenge you to follow your heart, follow that kind of goal of where you think you need to be, because sometimes it's just getting in the right location and the rest of the world opens up to you. So
Yeah. At this point, it's just it's the patience part for me. It's getting through these days because I feel like my life force energy is drained out of me daily,
hmm.
and it's a scary feeling. And my health, like I've been waking up with hives all over my body. They're coming on through the night. And I put my symptoms into ChatGPT because my doctor, she just told she's no help. The doctors are no help. So it said that it's my histamine from an extreme nervous system stress response from being in fight or flight mode
Mm-hmm.
for so many years. And, I don't really feel safe. I'm still in that town where all this happened. And but I know I'll get out. I know I'll get out. We have been staying away from our apartment because there was a massive chemical explosion fire
Hmm.
right over near our home on July 4th. And yeah, that was bad. So we haven't been home in a couple of weeks. But I realized today that's divine protection.
Yeah. Well, that's sometimes I think, at least for me, this is kind of how I've been looking at things. Is if something's happening for a reason or something's preventing me from being somewhere, instead of getting frustrated or being impatient or upset on something being wrong, I've been trying to at least look at it at a different perspective of like, all right, why? What's the purpose of this, and what's it here to help me with? And sometimes that thought or the understanding of why things happened comes way later, but I've been trying to at least trust that lately. And I've spent most of my life trying to only do things when I understand what the outcome is or I know what's going to happen. And lately that feels like that's my challenge, is learning how to do things without knowing the outcome, but trusting that it's all meant to be and it's for the good. And so
I understand that, and that's a difficult one because I've always felt the insistent need to understand everything and to know everything. You know what I mean? Like, but yeah, to let the universe guide you. It's a process, but I think you're doing a great job at it. I see your videos like nearly daily, and I think it's awesome that you are taking that, allowing yourself to venture out on this dream because I haven't come in contact with anyone who has a dream in my, local life.
yeah.
So you were an inspiration. I think I seen you the first day that you quit your job, and I was like, wow. I said, and he's gonna make it. I can just see it. I can just feel it. Like, yeah, I think that's really awesome what you did with your Jeep, and So have you got to take it out yet or not yet?
Well, so we've kind of just done some local stuff. I live right in northern Utah, so there's a lot of the mountains here, and so just done some off-road stuff here. But we've got a big trip planned down the first week in August to go take it down to southern Utah and kind of test out its abilities. So that's what I've been doing lately, is just kind of troubleshooting and dialing in everything. And on this, the Jeep was kind of built purposely for big rock crawling and off-roading, so there's a lot of heavy duty axles and heavier equipment on there, which then changes the kind of the mass and the weight of everything. So doing everything I've done in the last couple of weeks, I've started finding some of the weak points in the way the system was set up prior to me owning it, and so now it's just fixing all the little small quirks and kind of just making sure it's going to operate the way I want to and not leave us stranded out in the middle of the desert in the rocks. So
Yeah.
but yeah, it's been weird because I've spent most of my life doing something fun and having a vehicle that I always call it my Wii, right? Something that makes you go wee.
Right. Yeah.
Between fast motorcycles or jet skis or my truck that I had prior to this, now the Jeep. Like I've always had vehicles that were fun and fast. And
Right. That sounds fun.
now going to a big Jeep that's slow and is meant to do things different than anything I've ever experienced. It's kind of a whole different learning phase, and
Right.
it's definitely different. And that's what's weird is I look back to, right, it was April 29th that I made that first post, and so I'm coming up on 3 months, so almost 90 days. And if I was to go through a timeline, if even just watching my own videos back of where I've gone in these last 3 months, it is, my whole life seems like it's gone in 5 different directions all the time and completely different every week. Like it is, I almost have a hard time keeping up with things myself because it's like
Yeah.
things are changing so fast. But I've kind of adopted a new philosophy where if it sounds fun and it's exciting and there's nothing wrong with doing something, like I'm allowing myself to do things and to not say no as often. And that's been a big shift, is like just saying yes to things and then getting the experience of doing something that I wouldn't have allowed myself to do in the past. It's really opened up a lot of different doors, but like I said, it definitely feels like my life is going in 100 different directions all the time, and I don't really know what way is up, but just trying to figure out what fits the best for a little bit. So
How does it make you feel? Are you okay with it? Are you getting more used to it? Are you enjoying it?
yes and no. Like it's that weird phase of coming out of, I almost want to say like leaving the matrix, if you will, right? Just that programmed
Right.
wake up, go to work, do something for another person, provide for another
Yeah.
business, come home and think that that's a normal life. And
Right.
that's been the big shift for me, is realizing that like I don't have to spend my entire life building somebody else's fame and fortune. Like it's okay
Exactly.
to do things for yourself. It's okay to have personal goals, and that's been a big shift, is realizing what my life looks like and what I actually want to do, or how my day gets spent by taking priority of myself. Like that's been the hard thing to kind of adapt to, is just really putting myself first versus everybody else, and not in a
Yeah.
selfish way, but just in a way that's protecting me and kind of
Yeah.
making sure
Right.
that I'm growing myself in the best way possible. So it's been different, but I'm slowly learning how to figure it out. So
I think that's a theme for a lot of people right now, and half the people are attempting to do it, and half the people aren't. And I think the
yeah,
ones that are doing it are going to be the successful ones. And people get mad at that. Have you experienced anyone getting mad at you doing that?
oh yeah, and it's
Yeah.
more so kind of a, I don't want to say close family, but right, family from more so on my wife's side. Like everybody's got their own opinions, their own judgments, and what they think
Mm-hmm.
I should or shouldn't do in my life. And it's just kind of funny that everybody that has an opinion that wants to share something doesn't really know the details. So
Yeah.
I'm learning that too, that the people that you think are your close friends are not the same person that they really, they're presenting themselves in
Mm-hmm.
different ways. So
Right.
it's that
That's hard.
you let people show themselves and who they really are, and they actually do. So
Yeah.
that's, I'm just learning
That
that
can
too.
be.
That yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. That can be a shock too. But um, it feels good though to know, doesn't it?
oh yeah,
It did for me.
yeah. And it is, like I said, it's sometimes that mixed feelings of feeling good that you know that the truth about something or somebody, and then there's that kind of that letdown that now all of a sudden you have this new awareness and life is changing completely for you. So,
Yeah.
but
Yeah. It does hurt. It does. It does hurt.
you know,
But it doesn't hurt as bad as it does to keep going through it.
yeah. No, and that's it. Like I've used this before, but the example of the buffalo versus the cow, right? In a storm, a buffalo faces the storm and it runs into the storm, knowing that if it hits it head on, it's going to exit the storm faster, right? And the cow runs away from the storm, and therefore the storm catches up to it while it's still running away from the storm, and the cow ends up being in the storm longer and longer and longer. And so that's kind of been my approach to life lately, at least, or trying, is just tackle
Right.
things head on. Don't be scared. I have a lot of notes that I write to myself, and anytime I have ideas, I text myself these messages, and that's been a common one lately, is do the scary things until they're no longer scary. And
Right.
so that's been a focus in my life now, is just trying to do things that I might not have ever done before, or let myself kind of try something new. And it's been both good and challenging. So I figure if it's challenging, it's helped me grow. So, but
That's the whole point. We've
yeah,
all stopped growing. I think we stopped growing probably all as in our childhood, because I found that childhood wounding is what stunts our growth.
yeah. Well, and that's what I've been going through a lot lately, and even seeing a therapist and talking to people, I've realizing that a lot of my problems, a lot of things in life stemmed from childhood traumas that you just kind of never moved past or never allowed yourself to process. So
Hmm.
that's been the new focus, is just kind of figuring me out, trying to fix some of the things mentally, dealing with my own anxieties and stresses in life, and then again trying to move forward and figure out what the purpose is. So
I've heard that, when you have your awakening and you actually, go for it, you do go through that, the family and the friends thing, but you find your soul tribe,
yeah, and
the
that's
ones that you're meant to connect with for the bigger, higher purpose.
mm-hmm,
Because we're going to have a new world to lead,
yeah.
and it's going to need new leaders.
That's the
So
weird
I
part.
think,
Like I hear all that and I understand it and I definitely acknowledge it and support it, but it's like sometimes it's like the idea of seeing it come to fruition versus like just an idea. It's like I wish there was more I guess a window into the future. Let us see is actually coming.
yeah, I think that's another reason that I'm ready to leave the United States too. I just don't feel safe here anymore, and
Hmm.
I'd prefer, to be somewhere with a smaller population of people and, healthier food and things like that.
Yeah. Yeah, I've had a lot of conversations recently with people that do travel outside the country, and even that, people with different allergies or different gluten problems, and realizing the difference between even just the ingredients used in food in other countries versus here. Like
Hmm.
it's a different feeling. It's a different type of food. Your body processes natural things way easier than kind of all the additions that we're getting in our food here. So that would be nice to see one time if somebody actually just do things that's best for us versus what's profitable for a company. So
Exactly, because I was shocked to find out, like the history, like the Banking Act of 1933, and how America's really a corporation and how it's set up. All you have to do is just research it. It's true and real, and it was scary for me to find out certain things, and
hmm
I found out all of that information, from surviving the trafficking. So
wow.
it really is a sad situation that, people profit over,
Yeah.
care of other human beings.
hmm
Because I am quite interested in that, the Human Rights Council as well. I
Yeah,
think that's very important.
for sure. Well, let me ask you
So,
as we kind of wrap up our time together, and one of my favorite questions to ask, right? If somebody listens to this and kind of finds himself in a similar situation as you, what type of advice would you give them as far as coming through some really weird scenarios in life, the trafficking, the overdose, the kind of not knowing random people, giving you stuff? Like, what advice would you give somebody that kind of could help get them through a scenario that's similar to yours?
Follow your intuition, no matter how crazy it may feel. Choose yourself, keep the faith, and try to connect with others, even if it's just, through online communities. Just choose yourself. Keep going.
Nice.
And the universe will reward you.
Yeah.
And you got to believe that. You got to brainwash yourself with that. Unlearn everything you know.
That, I think, is the hardest part.
Exactly. Easier said than done, but it's very possible.
Yeah. Well, and I was reading some things the other day that says, right, we live the reality that we keep telling ourselves over and over and over.
Yep.
So every day, every night that you go to bed and you start focusing on all the stuff that's going wrong in your life and you start rebuilding those memories, we're just reprogramming our reality every night with the stuff that we're trying to get rid of. So
Right.
realizing that our thoughts do create, and our reality is a version of what we think about every day is kind of eye-opening, if you will, like understanding that we do need to focus on how we think about things in a little bit different way. I think it'll change everything.
Yeah, and that's kind of difficult. And I came across some info that we're actually somehow we receive thoughts like through, how Wi-Fi is through the air.
Yeah.
It's invisible.
Mm-hmm.
We as humans receive thoughts, like I guess maybe through other people's energy. I'm not sure where they all come from, but a lot of our thoughts aren't even our own. And I believe that.
Yeah.
So I try to do like meditations during bedtime to shut my mind down. And it takes time to get, to quiet the mind, but eventually it works and it helps.
Yeah. That's been a focus of mine too as well. So I think a lot of people could benefit from that, just understanding how to control your thoughts or how to limit what's coming in and out. And yeah, I kind of use the example of a radio station, right? And I understand frequency a lot. And if you think of just an FM radio channel, right, that's broadcasting a signal through a frequency, and multiple radio stations can be heard at the same time, just a matter of what you tune into, right? What channel are you tuned to? And I believe that's how our brain works, is we're just an antenna receiving a signal. And it's a matter of what we're tuned into is the signal we hear, the thoughts we receive. And so being aware of that and kind of tuning your own frequency, I think you can start attending or paying attention to what you're coming into, or what you're thinking about, what you're allowing into your thought process. So yeah, like you said, I don't think there's any such thing as a new original thought. I think everything out there has already been created. It's just a matter of what we pay attention to. So
yeah, all we are is energy.
Yeah.
So we need to we come here to learn how to control it and manipulate it and make it work for us, for our highest good.
Yeah.
So yeah, I've been trying to figure out too, like the star systems and things like that. And I found my birth star, that my soul originates from a place called Andromeda. And I would like to be able to find, finish my purpose here and make it home to a new galaxy, maybe.
Yeah. Have you been made aware of kind of your purpose and role here and what you're doing on the earth at the moment?
I believe that it's, to help lead and to help teach and to help create, a new way of being, help people remember who they are. Because that's the rule on earth. When you're born, the rule is you have to forget.
Yeah.
So we have to remember. So yeah, I want to help people remember who they are.
I love it. Well, if there's anything I can do to kind of help support you in this journey, and let me know. I'd love to be a part of that. And I really thank you a lot for being able to come here and be opened up and share with us your life story and everything you've gone through. So definitely feel like not only is it helpful for me and probably you, but a lot of the listeners as well. So let people realize they're not alone.
I'd like to come back after everything starts falling into place.
Yeah. And maybe you know the timeline of when that's going to happen.
Hopefully within the next few months.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
I feel like something's closer than we've ever expected, and it just keeps getting bigger and bigger. I don't know.
I think you're right on that, because I've had that feeling here lately too.
Yeah.
Very strongly.
Yeah. For me lately, time feels off, even just kind of motivations and the earthly type things. Just a lot of that seems like it's falling away. There feels like it's a bigger purpose, a bigger kind of soul calling, and more of a galactic job, if you will. I think there's a lot of things
Yeah,
shifting.
there's solar flares, and we've had really strange storms here lately.
Mm-hmm.
There's galactic wars going on, and we don't even know it.
Yeah. Nope. I've always told people I've been around that I feel like one day just the skies are going to open up and we're going to see into the universe in a way that we never realized was out there. And I think whether it's the veil of forgetfulness, it's just kind of blocking our own vision, if you will, of a different frequency. But I think there'll come a time where we'll kind of obtain a higher frequency and we'll be able to see more than what our human eyes have been showing us so far.
Right. They've had it hidden for a long time. They've done a good job, but it's now, it moved from the age of Aquarius into, I think, the age of Pisces, which is where all these systems for these last several thousand years are crumbling and they can't stop it.
Yeah.
So I think that's really neat. I'm excited for it.
Should be fun. We gotta just make it through it.
Yeah. Right.
So, okay. Well, again, I appreciate your time and sharing your story with us, and let's stay connected. I'd love to kind of hear how things develop for you.
All right, that sounds good. I enjoyed myself. Thanks for listening.
Yeah, absolutely. Have a good day.
You too.
We'll see you. Bye. Well, thank you again for sharing this space with us and listening to the conversation between me and Courtney. And she's definitely been through a lot in life, and hopefully things are kind of going to mellow out for her. And as we kind of go through this shift and watch the Earth's vibration change and a lot of people's worlds change, I think there's a lot coming. And maybe you guys have some information on that, and I'd love to hear from you. So if you would, reach out. I've got the Google Calendar that's linked to the bio in the TikTok page as well as the Instagram page. So you can either find me on TikTok at Cody Rampton or on Instagram is at The Awakened Stranger. And again, both of those sites have links to the Google Calendar where you can schedule a time slot and share your story and share your information. And I'd love to hold a call with you and kind of save space together. And then we also have the support group on Facebook, The Awakened Stranger as well. And that's just a little bit different space where we can share conversations and have dialogue and just open question and answers with the friends that are there. So if that's something you're into, find yourself there and we'll approve those, or the admins of that page will get you set up and we'll go from there. But hope everybody has a great day. Thank you so much for sharing this space with us, and I appreciate you all. We'll talk to you soon.